It's summer, it's hot, it's dry, and chickens are thirsty. Now, commercial waters like this one can cost upwards of $50 or more. That's a big bite for somebody running a little small backyard farm. So I'm going to show you how to make one that I think is far better for a couple of dollars, even free if you're resourceful. Let's see how.
That is a whole lot of new chickens. 60 peepers just out of the hatcher. 70 peepers. They're peeping up a storm. I'm going to just do a feed for a few days in a bathtub brooder, and then we'll go to the new pen. Hey guys, how you doing? Sleepy chickens. It's been a long day.
So all I use to make one of these waters is an old bucket, which you can buy new or recycle them somehow, a 5-gallon water jug, which they tend to turn up, and I'll find a lot of them in big box store parking lots and whatnot for some reason. I'm not sure why. I think people try to refill them and then realize they don't have caps or something and realize that's not such a great idea, but I find them lying all over the place. And that's it. This was my first prototype, which we'll be making today, hopefully improving on it a little bit. And I think that it is easier to fill, lasts longer, and ends up being cleaner than any of the commercial waters that I've used. So let's go ahead and make one. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is, using a framing square and a Sharpie, I'm going to scribe a line on the bottom of the bucket about, it's going to be about 3 inches up from the bottom, maybe a little bit less. It's not really an exact science. It's kind of going to depend on the neck of the bottles that you're using and size of your chickens and size of your buckets and all that, so you might have to play with a little bit, but for what I'm doing here, which with what is pretty standard sizes, it's about 2 3/4 inches. Okay, so I scribed a line along the bottom there about, say about 6 inches long or so, and then I just used a plastic pot, mushed it on there, and then traced another line, kind of a oblong thing. This is going to be the cutout, so that the chickens can get their heads in there to drink. Easy enough. Alright, so I've drilled 2 holes in the lower corners of my cutout drawing here, making sure that the edge of the hole is not lower than the line, which I'm going to be using as my lower edge there, so if that ends up being your water level line, then it's not going to leak out. I used a drill bit that, what did I end up using? 25/64. It was the one that was just a little bit bigger than the blade on my saber saw that I'm going to be using to do the cutout. So not anything critical on the sizes, just make it work. And when you're cutting through this plastic, the only real rule is to go slow. Go very slow, be very patient, and don't try and force it at all, because it will crack and break fairly easily if you do, especially if you're doing this when it's kind of cold out. I'm using just a battery-powered saber saw for this. Other thing that would be good for this is a spiral saw, rotozip kind of thing, that cuts through plastic very, very nicely. But it can also be kind of dangerous, especially if you're working with something that's this slippery and there's no real way to clamp it down. So I'm going to use the saber saw. Alright, so once again, just go nice and slow, let the tool do the work, don't force it, and you should have good results. So this is our bucket, complete at this point. Hole plenty big enough for a couple of chickens to get their heads in there and drink away, but not big enough for them to perch on, get their butts into, get it all full of dirt and slime and chicken poop and all that, which it's really the downfall of most every other water I've seen that has a rim around the entire outside of it is they just make a mess of it within a few hours, and you're constantly cleaning them. These, I don't have to. I can fill this up, and it's good for 2, 3, sometimes 4 days, depending on the season. And it stays clean pretty much right down to the end. And I just pull it out, give it a little rinse, and it's fine to fill up again. So the last thing that we need to do to make this water functional is I've put in our bottle, checked it for fit, all looks good. And what I'm going to have to do is drill some holes in the side of the neck here so that the water can easily flow out, even though the top of the neck is pressed tight up against the bottom of the bucket. So I'm going to do holes at 2 different levels, pretty much right down there against the bottom part of the neck, and then up a little bit, maybe right around this, in the middle of this ring here. Reason for 2 different levels is so that there's a slight difference in water pressure between one hole and the other hole, and it'll flow out nice and easily, not going to get clogged up, not going to get stuck due to air pressure, and always be a reliable source of water for the chickens. Alright, so I've drilled 4 holes around the neck here. The placement of the holes is not that critical. The only thing that really matters is the height of your top hole, which is distance from the bottom of the neck to the top of your top hole. That is going to determine where the top of your water level is going to be. So you might want to make that a little bit lower to start out with, and if that ends up being too low of a water level for your system, go up a little more and keep going however high you want until it reaches the water level that you want, which of course you want the water level to be below the bottom of the lip here, because that's what's going to keep the whole thing automatically self-leveling. The reason I did 2 or 4 holes, it'll work with 2, but just in case one of them gets clogged up with some kind of schmutz or a bug or algae or something, then I want to have 4 in there just to make sure that the water keeps flowing, and these guys always have water. So that's pretty much it for your construction. Last step, after you've got your hole cut in your bucket and you've got your holes drilled in the neck of your water bottle, just fill it up. So the last step to get this system working is to take your water jug, dump it upside down into the bucket, and the water will flow out up to the level of the highest hole that you've drilled, and hopefully it'll make the chickens happy. Let's see. Alright, so I've dumped the water jug upside down into the bucket. It has filled up to just about, looks like about a full inch below the edge of the lip there, that's fine for the adult chickens. They can get in there. For the littler ones, I might make it a little bit lower. You can make this system any way you want. Play with it. One thing to be careful of, however, is when you're putting the water jug into the bucket, be careful not to let it slip and drop down onto the bottom, because that will crack the bottom of the bucket. If not the first time, it will eventually. And then it'll just dump into the ground and your whole system will not function anymore, and you've got to make a new bucket. I've done that a couple of times. But other than that, I think this is a far superior system to the $50 plus commercial waters that you get at the feed and grain stores. I like it a lot better, and it's practically free. If it's for free, it's for me. Alright, you girls like that? I think you do. Water. As you can see with the stars of the show here, they can only get their heads into the hole. They can get in there, they can get all the nice, green, clean, fresh water they want. It's always replenished right up to that level that you choose with the depth of your holes. And they can't get in there, they can't get their feet in there, they can't get their butts in there, and it never gets all schmutzed up with all that crap that always gets around the feeding trough of the commercial waters. So I like this one better. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you make one, come up with any improvements. Triple G out. Happy chickening.